Hello, guys, my Divine Tribe. This is your girl, Tahiri Divine. You can find me on all my social sites as Tahiri Divine. Also, if you go to my website, you'll be able to sign up for my mailing list where you get exclusive content from me, and that's a great way for us to keep up. So be part of the Divine Tribe and join my mailing list. Hello, welcome, coming in, welcome back. I want to come with you guys to give you guys a special announcement. If you guys haven't seen on my news feed or in my stories, I am hosting or co-hosting, I am co-hosting a virtual online workshop with the beautiful Chantel Sauls of the Nefertiti Project. It is called In Her Garden, a Sexual Goddess Liberation Workshop. So we're really excited to bring this information to you ladies who are interested in tapping into their sex goddess, into their sensuality, and using it as a magnetism tool to actually live out your life and actually increase your spiritual path. So I'm excited to talk about this. We'll be going live tomorrow on my Instagram at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk more about it. It's our sensual homecoming, breaking into how do we get into understanding sensuality and using sensuality as a spiritual practice, because sexuality is spiritual. Is nothing separate from it. And we want to bring into tying the two worlds together and utilizing that. So if you guys are interested, make sure you guys come live tomorrow to be introduced to Miss Chantel Sauls and more about what this workshop that we are going to be collaborating on together. All right, so let's get into today's message, because you guys know we go live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on here on Instagram. And so I want to talk today specifically about shadow self, okay? And this conversation is kind of piggyback on my live earlier, which I'm going to post later. I'm going to edit it a little bit, but about discernment and understanding the female path. Because when we're talking about spiritual path, right, there is a feminine path, or what we call the female path. I really want to say female because femininity is not exclusive to just the female. But there is a path that the female bodied person does experience based off her biology that attunes her to her spiritual practice. And discernment was something I brought up very importantly as I was mentioning discernment. What I really want to talk about more specifically is the shadow self and embracing your shadow self and why that's going to be important when you are on your spiritual path. So the shadow self, or what is the shadow, right? The shadow is the part of our personality or a part of our beingness that is hidden. It's not what we express, right? So your shadow self could be the anxiety if you experience anxiety. Your shadow self could be maybe a mean streak if you could be a little mean. Maybe you could be a little sassy and sharp. You may not be outwardly that way, but maybe the voice in your head of how you really feel is quite sharp and nasty and not very nice, right? So whatever that shadow expression may be or experience that you have within, it is learn to make peace with it. And what happens typically when we don't make peace with our shadow, when we don't integrate the shadow with the light, we end up having situations where we have our shadow is running the show and not our soul, although the shadow is of the soul. But the shadow part of the soul is running the show that could put us in precarious experiences that could have been avoided or could have been better integrated in our life if we were more aware of ourselves. And the purpose of being aware of your shadow is so that you don't allow it to rule you and your decision making. So for instance, let's say if you don't have a healthy relationship with money, let's say that's part of your shadow, that you have a belief that money is evil or money is bad. So you don't necessarily put let's say you have a project or something that you work on that can bring revenue to you, but you won't do it because of the belief that you have that's maybe negative around money. And then if you get to the root of that belief system, there's some type of shadow aspect that is not allowing you to really embrace that part, which is just money, right? I'm just saying money. Let's say sexuality is a shadow for you, or embracing your sexuality. Maybe masturbation may be a shadow shame, right? You have shame that you do it. So I've talked to a lot of women. I've done a lot of surveys and had the opportunity to speak with a lot of women that experience shame. And maybe because it's their programming that they have about sex and orgasm and just their body. Maybe they believe their body is dirty, because we get that programming depending if you live in a Western society, Abrahamic religion influence. does put a lot of emphasis on the female body being impure, being unholy. So that can be a shadow for you, embracing your menstrual cycle, maybe not liking your menstrual cycle. And I'll talk on me specifically. That was something that was a shadow for me in my early adulthood life, because again, it was so much of this idea that you're unclean. And I can remember when I got on birth control pills, it was more so I could stop myself from having a period, because I didn't want to experience that. And now that I'm more mature and more in alignment with my body, instead of fighting against my body, instead of making my body an enemy, I have been able to integrate my insecurities with my bodies to be something that I can use as a tool to experience my world and actually create and co-collaborate with the universe and my surroundings to have the expression that I want to have. But so let's talk about this, why I think this is important to embody your shadow. Your shadow is not a bad thing, right? If you really, really take time to get to know it, there's a lot of power in the shadow. And what can happen is that if we don't allow the shadow to be integrated and expressed in a healthy way, it can turn into a detriment in our life. And I'm going to mention this from what's a current event situation. If you guys are familiar with the conscious community or Black thought conscious leaders, you may have heard of allegations of Brother Polite and the allegations. I don't want to go into detail. And this is something that I was talking about earlier in an earlier live, about spiritual gurus and about the feminine path. And it's important for women, female-bodied people on their spiritual feminine path, to really understand and take ownership of their inner masculine energy. Because typically what we're doing, if we didn't have, let's say, let me just get to the point. Like a lot of times, as women, especially in these spiritual spaces, we want to be around spiritual men. Whether you're attracted to men or not, that's not the situation. But we want to be around spiritual men, and we are attracted to the intellectuality, right? Because we talked about the intellectual aspect of the inner masculine within the woman, and we can try to externalize our masculinity through a man, thinking that he is the epitome of what I am looking for, or what I perceive as not in me, because I'm thinking I have to stay feminine, not integrating my feminine path with my masculine energy. Okay, so again, a feminine path is different from feminine expression and masculine expression. I'm gonna break this down too, so that we don't get confused with semantics and words. So the feminine path of spirituality is really the path of the goddess. And the a female in her female body form is a goddess, whether she is aware of her goddessship or not. You are a goddess. You came into this incarnation as the physical manifestation of the goddess. The male spiritual path is in the physical incarnation of observance and experiencing the feminine female bodied person. So there is a beautiful harmony that these have with each other. There's not a balance, although there is a balance, but balance does not mean 50-50, y'all. There's a balance of energies and harmonies that the feminine and the masculine path have with each other. But what tends to happen is, and this is going to go into why I say discernment is going to be key, in understanding your shadow and integrating your shadow, not in a way of allowing it to rule and create destruction in your life, but allowing it to have a place of expressing itself in a healthy way. So what has been taking place with a lot of male spiritual gurus, and that is not across the board, it's just with these specific archetypes that are showing up. It's a specific archetype that does this, y'all. So I'm not talking about all male gurus, spiritual gurus, but there's a specific archetype that does show up that abuses its power of wanting to embody and own the female, or have her only come in one archetype. And we understand these archetypes being the mother and the maiden, and they completely dismiss the crone. And you guys can look at my other video that I have called the patriarchy deception of the mother, maiden, and crone experience as we know it. And this is why I am really really adamant about really understanding the divine feminine archetypes as well as the divine masculine archetypes. But right now we're going to focus on feminine archetypes until we're ready to go into the masculine archetypes, because to understand the masculine, you have to first understand the feminine, because she is the first cause. She is the first. The feminine is the first, the female, the feminine expression of all comes through the mother first, the great mother goddess, the creatrix. And when that energy of the male spiritual guru goes unchecked and it's not in alignment with its masculine path of being the observer and experiencer of the feminine, it can come into abuse, and it could come into suppressing and oppressing the female persons. And so we see these type of circumstances or incidences take place a lot of times with spiritual male gurus abusing their power, doing things that are sexually deviant towards the feminine goddess. And so discernment and using that as a tool in your spiritual practice is going to be so keen. Please do not seek any type of being outside yourself to express you. You have everything you already need, and it's going to be up to ourselves to cultivate that. So if you need someone like myself or another teacher, you don't have to use me. I just want you guys to find someone that is able to help you cultivate you, take you back to yourself, take you back within inside yourself, to cultivate your intuition, to cultivate your discernment, to cultivate your femininity and your womanhood, so that it's an expression of your true embodiment, and not, as I said in my patriarchal deception video, not allowing your archetypes to be expressed based on the male experience, but to be expressed based on your beingness of who you are. And I think that's so important to do, because that will help us eliminate the illusion of separation and eliminate the illusion that we, as the female-bodied people or the feminine path spiritualists, that we are only allowed to express ourselves in a confinement or this container that has been presented by the patriarchs and other women that promote the patriarch's ideal of what the feminine path and how she needs to express her spirituality and her sensuality, because that's a lot of times what a lot of people don't understand. And I want to make sure that you ladies understand too, that your sexuality is your spirituality. You are Shakti energy, okay? You are that. And when something outside of you is trying to manipulate you to control your energy, they are using your sexual life force energy to benefit itself, and they're siphoning it, and that causes a lot of depletion. It causes a lot of confusion. It creates space for us to be manipulated and for us to be used and abused. And I'm over it. I am tired of hearing about these abusing stories, but I'm glad and happy that they're coming out, because this needs to be exposed more. This needs to come out, because it is time now for the divine feminine to stand and sit on her throne and realize that she is on her throne. And in order to do that, it's going to take cultivation of your discernment and your intuition, so that you can move discriminatively through your life without allowing energies to come in to interfere with what path that you're on. So it's so important that we really tap in and tune and align ourselves with the feminine spirituality path and your goddess path. And there's different ways of the goddess. You may be a creator goddess. You may be a destroyer goddess. You may be a sustainer goddess. You may be all of the different goddesses. I'm every woman. She's all in me. Whatever, how you need to express that, it is so important that we cultivate that and use these stories of mythos. And I'm saying mythos because I want us to take that in a grain of salt too, because again, read the stories of these goddesses that you resonate with, but also take in a grain of salt of when these stories were cultivated, because were they cultivated prior patriarchy or during the patriarchy? Because if so, I just want us to ensure that we're using discernment to recognize what story is fabricated and what stories are the essence of the truth of what this goddess energy represents. Because a lot of stories, at least what I've been going through, I've been able to see that they're filtered through patriarchal concepts and ideas of how they want the feminine female to express herself. For example, the story of Artemis being born through Zeus's forehead because he wanted to create the perfect daughter. That is another aspect of the maiden archetype, and how the masculine, I don't want to say masculine, how the patriarchy, let's say patriarchy, how the patriarchy wants the feminine to express itself in a very limited form. Or even Demeter, sometimes some of the stories of Demeter, who was the mother of Kor, aka Persephone, how her storyline is very much of that of the long-suffering mother, because that archetype has been another story that has been playing out in our society, as mothers are supposed to be so giving and so self-sacrificing of themselves that they allow themselves to be depleted. And so I want us to be very aware that although we are going into these stories, if you decide to go into these stories, to still understand there's filters over them, and to ask your spirit, your discerning spirit, to allow you to discern what is the BS and what's the truth of the stories. Okay, so please do that. But I wanted to share that because I think that's an important aspect of understanding your shadow, is understanding the parts of yourself that you may not like, that you may not love, that you may think is unwanted, or even that you're unaware of. Really taking time to go deep into your shadows and integrating your shadow, and what lesson that your shadow can bring to you. What power can your shadow bring to you? Because there's power in the shadows, and everything in the shadows is not bad. So we want to take good and bad off of it. However, there can be aspects of the shadow that may not be as beneficial for the objective or the assignment that you're trying to have in life. So that is why I say integrating your shadows and not demonizing the shadow, not putting labels to the shadow, is going to help us cultivate our spirituality practice a lot better, and allow us to live a more holistic, freer life, without the restrictions of thinking that there's a part of us that's evil or bad, or I just feel like something's coming after me. It's typically internal situations. You're typically our shadow that's trying to get our attention. And so it can start to express itself or expound itself in ways that may create negativity in life. So it's not always sometimes somebody putting a hex on us. It could really just be our own energy that we're running from, that we're suppressing, that we're oppressing, because now we have taken a colonizer patriarchal approach on our own spiritual practice. So it's a lot of deprogramming that is going to be necessary when you're cultivating your spiritual path, especially if you're on the feminine path of spirituality as a goddess on your journey of goddesshood. That could really be important to understand. So excuse me guys. So I wanted to share that with you guys, and really bring this conversation to the forefront of shadow work and integration, so that we can help eliminate, or at least minimize, ourselves being caught up in spiritual heresy with these gurus, with these people who are just here to manipulate the goddess energy, who are here to siphon her energy and use it for their own personal gain versus the collective benefit. So that is what I wanted to share. Please make sure that you guys tune in tomorrow to my special live guest. We'll be going live on Instagram at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which is 4 o'clock Pacific time, discussing our sensual homecoming and why it's important to embrace our sensuality as a spiritual practice. I'll be with my guest, Chantel Sauls of the Nefertiti Project. So she'll be coming on live with me tomorrow, and we'll be doing a co-collaborative workshop later in September, going deeper into these practices. So I look forward to talking with you guys more tomorrow about shadows and sex and sensuality and magnetism, and understanding why the senses is so important to tap into as it pertains to our spirituality. Because as us beings who are on the feminine path, your senses is going to be so important for you to cultivate and to really embrace as you are matriculating and graduating and evolving in your spiritual work and your spiritual life and your spiritual walk. So that is all. Make sure that you guys comment, like, and save this post, because we are keeping this in the algorithm. And if you guys are on my YouTube channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you're always notified when I go live. And make sure that you're on the mailing list, Divine Tribe. That's what you want to be. So go to TahiriDivine.com and you can join my mailing list, where you get exclusive content from myself and behind the scenes information, or just being connected, because we want to ensure that we have a way to connect with each other. Well, I love you guys. I will be back live tomorrow for our special live, our sensual homecoming live with Chantel Sauls of the Nefertiti Project. I love you all. And until next time, bye guys.